My name is, all right, so we're on. Hey, everybody. My name is Daisha, and with me I have Kara and Christopher, and we're here to talk about, this is an informal panel. We're just here to talk about the AADS program in conversation with the American Studies program. So, how y'all doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Pretty good. We're just going to go into our bios real quick and do some background. Kara, you want to get started?
Sure. My name is Kara Ireland. I'm really glad to be here with everyone. I am a 22-year-old grad student. I'm in the Masters of American Studies. I graduated with a BA in English, and I've just kind of streamlined my way through my schooling. Never really took a break, so I represent one of the fewer perspectives of grad school experience. But yeah, I'm in the MAST program, and I'm in my first year, and I'm happy to be here.
What about you, Christopher?
Hi, I'm Christopher Valentine. I'm an AADS major. I graduate in May. My path was not linear at all. I've been in school off and on for 10 years. And I'm excited I found AADS, and I'm finally graduating.
So my name is Daisha Hewell. I'm a bit of an untraditional student as well. My path was not linear whatsoever. I would always call myself a professional dropout because I went through a few programs at a few different colleges, but when I got to KSU, it stuck for some reason. I graduated in December with my Bachelor's of Arts in AADS, and I'm currently in the MAST program as well. I'm also currently a GRA in the MAST program, a graduate research assistant. My focus is Black feminism predominantly, and my research interests include Black respectability politics through what I like to call a Brittany Cooperian framework. I'm really obsessed with Brittany Cooper and her works, particularly Eloquent Rage. So I enjoy her analysis when it comes to Black respectability politics, when it comes to middle class and everything else. And I'm particularly interested as well in ethnographic research. So what are you guys interested in when it comes to like your research focused and what you prefer to study?
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, dang, I did a really short bio compared to you. A couple of those things as well. I'm also a teaching assistant under the Gender and Women's Studies program. And next semester, I'll be teaching in the African and African Diaspora Studies also, just to supplement my bio from earlier. But yeah, my research interests, did you want to go first, Chris, or can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
My research interests are pretty much influenced by my identity as a Black lesbian woman. I really enjoy finding the intersections between race, identity, and class, and gender and sexuality. I am very new to the MAST program, so this is my second semester of my first year, and I have taken quite a few classes that, organically answer some of these questions and aid some of these interests that I have. But mostly, I'm still figuring out what I want. Like I said, like I'm really new to all of this, and I have like kind of my interests, but I don't really know like what my research interests are. Like Daisha was really specific and direct about hers, and I don't really have that kind of clarity for myself yet, which is okay.
By the way, I'm still gathering 100%.
Yeah, I think that that's cool that you have like a niche that you're striving toward. But as far as like for me, Black feminisms, I'm not really sure, and I'm still figuring it out. So I think that that's a qualified answer that nobody feels, compelled to give, but it's honest. I'm trying to be as honest as possible.
One thing that I would say that's nice about our space when it comes to AADS, we really get the freedom to not feel pigeonholed into making a choice immediately. Like, what do you want to do? Which direction do you want to go in? I got really comfortable with people asking me, oh, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I'm not sure. I haven't figured it out. And I was able to say that with a type of confidence that was like, I know that it's going to come. It's just at this point, I'm absorbing knowledge because there's so much to learn. And I'm interested in so much that I'm not going to specifically choose something. So
Exactly.
I really like that our program, you know, like they make that a space for us. They create that space.
Also,
So how about you, Christopher?
Well, I think that's a question I got a lot when I wanted to change my major from public relations to AADS. Like, what am I going to do with that? But going through the program, like the possibilities are kind of limitless. Like, there's so many different areas you can get into. Like, I've gotten really interested in Black feminism over the last year. I really am into like the history of Black people in food. Like, I've learned like African American cooking is American cooking, and I don't know. That's something that interests me. I'm really interested in Afro-Futurism.
Can you explain what that is?
So Afro-Futurism, it's kind of like Black people in science fiction, but it's kind of beyond that as well. Like, you could think of Outcast as Black futurists.
Okay, cool. Dope.
I've been reading a lot of Octavia Butler. And like, I feel like there's ways in which you can connect all of those things, which is really interesting to me. So I do really, really like the interdisciplinary nature of AADS and how I can kind of map what I want to do.
I had a class with Dr. Regina Bradley, and we talked at one point about Afrofuturism because, you know, like, she's very knowledgeable about Outcasts, but she posed the question of, do we see Black people in the future? And when, you know, we see a lot of sci-fi movies and things like that, we do have to ask ourselves, like, how are Black people positioned and how are their stories told? Like, are we the main characters in stories in the future? So, you know, Afrofuturism, she was making the point that it creates a space to see the possibilities of Black people, you know, in a futuristic setting, which is radical.
Especially because in a lot of, I guess one of my focuses, now that I've thought about it a little bit more and heard you guys' perspectives, is definitely Black people in media, in all kinds of media, because I love music. I love to write. I'm an author of 5 books, and I also have interest in screenwriting, a little bit of literature. Like, I don't know, man, like the possibilities for me are boundless, kind of. So in thinking of my focus is like Black people in media in general, like in TV, like every time that we're in a period piece, like it's very like, it's only relegated to one narrative all the time. And it's either like, I don't know, like I want to break the mold, I guess you could say. Because every time that we see Black people, it's always like this. My friend and I actually were looking on Netflix. It was Black History Month, and we wanted to watch only Black stuff. And so we were like, okay, well, let's watch a movie we haven't seen before. Literally every descriptor of the show or the movie was like struggling teen mom, or like college dropout, or drug dealer. And it's just like, can we have positive stories that are not centered by struggle?
Can we have something normal and boring?
Can we have like, can we have Black friends? Can we have a show about nothing, about stupidity?
A Black girl and her dog, you know, like there are stories about white boys and their dogs. So like, we want to ask, like, can we just have simple stories and unproblematic stories?
Yeah, exactly. And it literally was, every single list was something that centered struggle and oppression. And I was just like, I have to change this. Something about this has got to give.
It can be depressing. Like, I just want to see something happy.
That's where a lot of my research interests came out of over the last year. Like, because I don't want to just be mired in trauma all the time. That's not all the Black experience is.
Yeah.
I think Afrofuturism is one of those places that makes space for exactly that.
So can you guys talk a little bit more about those? Those are stereotypes directors follow. Yeah. I think that they create the niche for it. And then they were like, well, some people do have these experiences. And so they want to like create that space for them. But I'm not, that's a good question. I
think it pigeonholes that space to where other creatives come in and it's like, well, this is what sells, you know, like we know this movie's about slavery or oppression or trauma sells. So when there are creatives trying to enter the space and decide, oh, we want to do something different, there may be some rejection to that and saying, oh, we follow this model because we know it works. Which is now why we see people like Issa Rae, for example, who is telling different types of stories and everything else. Yeah. But it was hard for people like that to be able to break into the field.
Well, there's also
go ahead.
Sorry, there's also this skewed idea of what is mainstream, I think, also that informs it, and what is seen as mainstream is seen as white. So I don't know, are Black people the audience of these things all the time?
Sure.
It makes me think about like Blackish and Mixedish and these shows that are catered to, that are centered around Black people, but are catering to white audiences. Like it's that's why I don't like the show, because it's very much like, oh, this is how you treat your Black friends in this scenario. And it's just like, can we just have them existing? We don't have to explain every facet of our identity and every facet of our place in society to an audience that has pretty much cemented us in that space, you know?
Carrie, you kind of like, when we discussed this previously, and you kind of ruined Blackish for me, because after you said that, I saw it as so formulaic. I was really able to see, I'm like, this, she's white. She's right. It's not as funny anymore. Because
it's not funny because they explain the joke, and it's like, that's the gag for Black people, is like, we all get it, and that it's like a cultural thing that we don't have to have the explanation. So yeah. And in terms of like directors following stereotypes, I think they definitely do. I've never thought about it in such terms, but that's a really good point that you made.
I think that your specific words were, Blackish is not a show for Black people. It's a show to teach white people how to treat Black people. And I was like,
I said that? Ooh, look at me.
You said that. And I was like, wow. What? Truth.
Oh my gosh. And also the show Black AF, I think it's on Netflix.
Kenny Bears is the same. It's more so based on his life.
Also, I wrote an article over last summer that was a little bit problematic, wasn't received very well, but it was about how all these shows decenter dark-skinned people, because in Blackish, and in Mixedish, and in Black AF, like they were all biracial, or like some kind of mixture of Blackness that wasn't just like kinky hair, broad nose, you know, dark skin, Black people. And I think that has a place to talk about. We can forge a place to talk about that as well. But we're getting a little bit into media. We're not really talking about what we're supposed to be talking about.
How about we back up a little bit and refocus on KSU and the MAST program, and talk about like why we chose these programs.
Right.
So me particularly, like I said, I bounced around to a lot of different schools, and I never quite found, maybe not necessarily a program of interest, because of course I had interest. I was previously a fine arts major, so I have an art background and everything. This is a completely different, but not necessarily as different program of study, because, you know, there is art in this space, of course. And when I came to KSU, I was really just looking to finish up my degree in any way possible, because I had credits scattered in different areas, from, you know, trying to finish a degree and saying, okay, I'm just going to do this because it seems the easiest. And then I'm just going to do this because it seems the easiest, and adding on classes. So by the time I came to KSU and met Dr. T, I looked her up and went to her office to ask questions. You know, she was able to completely sit down and explain to me. We went over my entire program list and what fit where. She really just took the time, and which endeared me to her and the program. And I found the AADS program to be like, it was such a support system when it came to understanding what classes I needed to take, them coordinating very closely to make sure that you understand the track to graduation and where you're going. And I found that it was a sense of home, and it was a community, a safe space as well. So I really enjoyed that about KSU. And then when it comes to the MAST program, of course, it was the gradual next track to the AADS program, but also there's a whole lot of freedom in the American Studies program, because you can create your degree and focus around, you can tailor it to what you specifically want to do, you know, with your career field. So I found that freedom and flexibility, you know, extremely helpful with making the decision about where I wanted to go. So what about you guys?
I had a similar journey to you, Deja, that we talked about before. I was a journalism major. I was in PR. I took some ballet classes. I tried to do everything, tried to figure out what I would. I was very bad at ballet. And then so I took a break from KSU, and then when I went back, I just decided to I was like, maybe I'll try AADS. And I just really loved it. And I loved learning about Blackness and my history. And it all just felt like basic stuff that I should already know. And I was just really excited to learn all of it. And also, like Deja, Dr. Thomas helped me so much. People kept telling me, have you talked to Dr. Thomas? You talk to Dr. Thomas. And I was like, oh, I'm okay. And then eventually I crawled into her office, and she was just like, it's time for you to go. And she literally just gave me a path to leave with this AADS major. And I've never been nurtured like this in any other program or in school, period, I don't think. And I think it's really special.
Yeah. I think that it's really interesting that I ended up at KSU, because when you think Black Studies, you don't think KSU. But people have made it, we have created a space for ourselves. And I honestly have not been a part of the space for very long. I was an English major, so I had a completely different track. But my last semester, I still had a little bit of electives to fill. And I decided to take this class called The Black Woman. And I was like, whatever, like, why do I need to take a class called The Black Woman? I am a Black woman. It's just going to be for fun. And then it completely blew my mind. There's so many things, there's so many fundamental things that you don't know go into your identity that do, and that shape you from the inside out and sculpt you to be this person that's either rooted in defiance or rooted in like resistance or something like that. And you just don't really consciously know that about yourself until you do the work to figure it out. And that honestly changed my entire outlook on what I wanted to do in my life, what I wanted to study, what I was passionate about. And so I think my story is pretty unique because my parents have always told me to do what I'm good at. And by the time I was in college, I was like, okay, well, I'm a good writer. Let me just be an English major. I guess I'll be a copy editor, or I guess I'll like work in publishing or something. And I was just very like relegated to whatever my path was supposed to be. And I want to completely break out of that mold. Like there's no thing that you're supposed to do. Like you figure it out as you go. And I'm really partial to that way of thinking because it doesn't tie you down and it doesn't corner you into anything. And so as an English major, I took The Black Woman and learned so much and forged all these connections. And I was just like, wow, you could do this. Like, I didn't know that, especially because like as an English major, I always was kind of the person that had questions to raise about the literary canon and how it's very white male centered, very like, and whenever there is like a racial bending, like it's always centered around depression. And it's not really, we don't really talk about it the way that we should be talking about it. It's kind of like, oh yeah, here's all these great authors, and then there's Toni Morrison, and it's just like, right. whoa, hold on, she has so much merit to it. Exactly. And so I decided to go to the I was never an AADS major or minor, but I took one class, and that's really all it took for me. And then I chose to be in the MAST program because it intertwines, it blends AADS and gender and women's studies and queer studies and literature and rhetoric, and it's everything. And so, yeah.
I see there's a few questions about what you can do specifically when it comes to a career in terms of a bachelor's in AADS. And so off the top of my head, of course, you can always teach. You can teach at any level, of course, at collegiate level, high school, any other level. And there's also, there's HR because human resources is somewhere that they need people with diversity. There's diversity and outreach programs so that you can always get into that facet. There's activism, and when it comes to nonprofit, you can also get into those fields. There is history, so you can look into museums and I was thinking about working at the Civil Rights Museum in downtown Atlanta. I was thinking about, you know, the Avery Research Center. There's so many, it's the kind of thing where you want to create your space and decide, what do I like? What do I want to do? And you kind of go in that direction. So I hope that answers some of those questions. Do you guys have anything else? You care also being, you know, with writing and everything else, you can kind of lend that type of expertise.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't want to take up too much time talking about my story, but if I'm permitted, I was actually supposed to be in the Masters of Professional Writing because I was like, well, this is just going along the path. But when I was looking at the class load, it wasn't exciting me. It just felt like I was disposed to doing something I was told to do. And then I looked at the MAST list, and I was just kind of like, you can take a class about the criminal justice system. You could take a class about Black women. You could take a class about what Black resistance, like all this stuff. And I was just like, whoa.
That's nothing
like,
politics you can get into as well.
So many things. And I'm like, okay, well, for me, my career goals are, I want to incorporate writing, definitely. I think that my role in activism is more as a scholar and an essay writer or, you know, storyteller than like grassroots or on the ground footwork. So my background in English, or whatever your background is, I feel like you can always, whatever your background is, I feel like you can always blend it to do whatever you want to do. And I know I keep saying that, but that's the truth, because my background in English has given me like a rhetorical processing mind, and I can create all these narratives that I want to sorry, I can create the narratives that I want to tell people who are not in the field. I can relate to scholars because I know how to talk to people. I have the skills to share my knowledge, however the people can receive it. And I think that that's something that I got from the English department that, you know, didn't really come from anywhere else, but I'm using it to my benefit in the AADS department and in the MAST program. And I think that whatever your background is, that you can make it, you can use it, utilize it for the AADS program.
I also feel like the degree, in a type of way, and I guess I'm kind of saying this abstractly, it lends a certain expertise or legitimacy to the Black experience with what you're talking about. So with going into specific fields, it's kind of, it makes it easier to be able to do anything from the Black perspective and be able to, not that we're a monolithic people, of course, but to be able to lend your cultural experience in an expert way and say, I have this to be able to, you know, back up that experience and legitimize what I'm talking about, because we all have our own personal experiences to say, you know, I have, as a person of color, experienced this as a Black woman, as a Black queer person. But, you know, these are all experiences that we have in general, but then we're able to contextualize those experiences into things that we've seen in the past, into policy, you know, into, you know, specific events and everything else that lend more, it just kind of cements that we know what we're talking about. We're expertise in our field. So even with talking about getting a minor in it, if you have, you know, Kara has a BA in English, but say if she had gotten a minor in AADS and she wanted to work in journalism, that would lend her a specific experience to work in journalism, to work in, you know, like radio or broadcast. Like, you know, we see shows like The Breakfast Club that lend to a specific experience as well and bring on, you know, other commentators who are experts in other areas. So I think that we kind of make it so broad or talk about it in such a broad way because the possibilities are kind of limitless when it comes to what you can tailor your degree to be with your career field. And I didn't know, were you going to say anything, Christopher? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I was kind of just going to agree with you guys. I feel like AADS informs like whatever you're going out to do. Since taking these classes, I look at so many things differently. I look at politics differently. I think about my identity. And like, I plan to go on to grad school and I want to study African-American literature. And I don't know that I would have come to that conclusion had I been an English major. So it's been really nice.
And, you know, next we were actually going to talk about the benefits and the significance of the program, and also like career aspirations. But I don't know. I feel like we kind of covered that to an extent. I guess we can talk about our specific, like what's benefited us personally. And,
yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about our specific class experiences, because I think that these people are on the fence about whether they can make something out of their interests. And I feel like I'm proof that you literally can. I had one class and it changed everything for me. And so maybe we could talk about our experiences and how a single class like gave us like a thirst for the rest of it. If you guys have any experiences that you're thinking about, or any teachers or conversations in the classroom that come to mind when I say that, like, feel free to share, because I know I do. I have so many.
Which one of you guys want to go first?
I can go ahead. So like 2 classes spring to mind. So basically, Dr. Thomas took me under her wing last year, and I took her for a Black feminist writers course, and that really like opened my eyes up to a lot of things, like the Combahee River Collective, and I was introduced to Brittany Cooper, and I just learned so much about the experiences of Black women, and Black feminism in a lot of ways helps me to imagine Black futures. Like I feel like that's what these women are doing. And I connected the liberation of Black women to the liberation of all of us. And I think it's really important that we understand that. I also took over the summer, I think you mentioned you took it, Deja, the Black Panther course with Dr. Vaught.
Yes.
Wow.
I knew absolutely nothing about the Black Panthers going into it. Like what I did know, like I feel like I learned in school, but like it wasn't the truth, if that makes sense. And I learned about, like I really just learned about what real liberation looks like, what real liberalism looks like. And I think that's been really, really great for me.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Black Panther course? Because I did not know that that was a thing, and I am obsessed with it. So I need to know.
It is such a good course. It
is
really
a great
is.
Course. We learned about, there's so much, COINTELPRO. We learned about like the issues happening in Palestine. And then after the course, I read Asada in Dr. Thomas's class. So like those 2 things were connected. I guess, Deja, you could probably say more. I feel like I'm rambling.
Well, the Black Panther course, it's taught by Seneca Vaught. It is centered around the Black Panther Party, but we also talked about the Black Panther movie with Marvel. So we were talking about both of those, and sometimes in conversation with each other, but a lot of the times separately. But like you were saying, when it came to understanding the Black Panther Party, I would go as far to say that I learned nothing when it comes to, you know, like my primary education with high school and everything else. The Black Panthers just simply weren't talked about in school. You know, we live in Georgia. It's the South. The textbooks and the educational curriculum here is tailored a very specific way. It's not multicultural at all. I would go so far as to say that it's not truthful a lot of the times when it comes to history and everything else, and it's not inclusive. So with learning about the Black Panther Party, you know, we learned about their activism, as well as, you know, their militancy and the reasons behind it. Like you said, we learned about COINTELPRO. We learned about specific figures in the movement, and also how to understand the things that, you know, I don't want to characterize it as good and bad with saying like the good things they did versus the bad things they did, but understanding and humanizing the experiences of Black people and understanding the choices that they had at the time, and also getting the true story of what specifically happened to them, you know, in that time period, because there's so much that's just not seen or understood. So he introduced us to footage, you know, he showed us videos and everything else, and a lot of the courses that we have in the AADS program, they back up the things they teach us with, you know, with film, with art, with, you know, so many different aspects of, we're able to, you know, go look at these things on YouTube and see footage of these time periods of what actually happened instead of just everything coming from a book. It's really, you know, it works in every facet. So I really enjoyed the Black Panther class. It's a great class.
I also felt like the class really helped me parse through what was happening over the summer and really like understanding what was happening in a way that I don't think I would have understood previously before the class. And like I understood, like we've been upset for a long time for valid reasons. And like I understood all of the gaslighting that's been happening. And I understood the complicity of the government in some of the things that are happening.
And understanding, you know, contextualizing the Black Lives Matter movement as well with the Black Panther Party and, you know, similarities and differences with how they're perceived and, you know, how they're treated by the government. And, you know, there's the simple fact that both of them were labeled as terrorist organizations. And, you know, we can see why. And then we think about groups like, you know, the Proud Boys and other things that are not labeled, you know, as extremist organizations in the same type of way and not treated as such. So it's just like we keep saying, it's really helpful to contextualize and understand what's happening now and, you know, not necessarily, well, seeing how we can avoid repeating history or what can be done differently.
I also think what's really useful, but it's kind of like a given in this, but it's not treated as such in other contexts, is the fact that we are very much encouraged to question the text. We are encouraged to not just take things at face value, which is a sentiment that is not at all pushed in other fields, right? Like classes. I don't know English.
Disagree. Like we're able to debate, we're able to challenge, and really nice.
The teachers, the professors open up that space for us organically. They're like, "What do you think about this? Like, did you have any pushback on this?" And then they allow you to talk about it. And even if they disagree with your point of view, they allow you to say it. And I think that that is what creates like the best classroom environment for me, because I love discourse. I don't like to be taught something and just have it a unidimensional way of receiving. Like I want to be able to show my perspective, to tell you what I think, and then have a discussion come out of that. And that's what AADS has always been in my experiences. And then my class, I never took the Black Panther class, and I'm really sad that I didn't. Maybe I can in the future, but I remember my first AADS class was actually intro to AADS, and it was the first class I've ever taken on that campus that was full of people who looked like me. Like I have never been in a predominantly Black class. I think it was an all Black class, actually. I think it was all Black people. And that experience alone, because I come from a predominantly Black area, so it's not rare for me to have been in an all Black classroom, but at a PWI, a predominantly white institution, like that was a moment for me. And then we had all these, we would learn stuff, but then we would also substantiate it by opening the floor to like just experience in the sense of community and sharing stories and like feeling validated and heard by your peers, which instead, especially as an English major, I was often the person who had to have like the token Black voice in the class and be like, oh, so as a Black person, what do you think? And it's like, let's let her speak for an entire race of people, an entire class of people.
Right.
It was never like that in an AADS class. It was always very balanced and nuanced and came from a lot of different perspectives, socioeconomic perspectives, gendered perspectives, just so many things that allow nuance for the discussion. And that's what I always like the best.
Right.
And I think that's one of the great things about having a program that's to some extent rooted in experience, that you're able to have these dialogues and conversations, but you're also learning history.
Kara, speaking of what you were saying when it came to the sense of community, this was also one of the first spaces where I felt like I was encouraged to, you know, talk about my own personal experiences, where in a lot of classes and a lot of writings, like you are not supposed to put your personal experiences in your writing, but this is a space where your personal experience is not only valued, it's necessary to be able to do this work. Because like what you say about identity politics, And as well with like class conversations, that was really the best, or that is the best part of class, because it's just the entire class is a conversation. It's an argument. It's an airing of grievances with the system and everything else. Like one class we both had together was the Black woman class. And when we're talking about a conversation, Dr. Thomas and Dr. Orsha they co-taught that class together. And every single class we went in there and we took our desk and we made a circle in the room with our desk.
That makes all the difference.
Facing each other
and forcing you to like converse with your classmates. Like they're just so different. They
create a community. Like after a while, we came into class like, okay, I'm ready to get in my circle, because who wants to talk about it today? The first thing we would come around and talk about, current events, or, what are we mad about? What are we seeing? What's crazy this week? And that was a way to, take pop culture, American culture, the things that we were seeing, and contextualize it into our readings and class experiences and everything else.
Also, all of the heavy information that we were constantly consuming, was we had to read a book, I forgot the title, but it was by Denise White, and it was about Black women during slavery. And there's just all these perspectives that we have never, ever heard of before. And we're consuming that, and we're also consuming a little bit of Brittany Cooper. We're also consuming a little bit of Audre Lorde and some essayists from another text.
Just getting your mind blown
Words of Fire.
All kinds of directions.
Words of Fire. That's what it was from.
Yes. Dr. Beverly got checked off, who will be on later today.
I know. I can't believe it. But all these perspectives, and we're just consuming information. And Dr. T gave us an environment to expel that. It wasn't just the consumption of something that was deeply like troubling and heavy. It was also, how does this make you feel? And that simple question I've never been asked that before. It was just, yeah, you have to take this at face value, and then you have to write an essay about it. You don't get to talk about it. You don't get to analyze it. You just write about it through this lens, through this theory, and you don't get to talk about it. And the conversation is the point in that class, in all of these classes. The conversation.
Really engage with the text in these classes.
Yeah.
There was a question that was asked that what is the most shocking thing that we have learned, like in AADS information?
How much time do you have?
Right. I'm like, I think that 1102 was one of the most shocking classes I took to understand, like what happened after slavery. And so, for example, one of the most shocking things I learned was that, Georgia was a penal colony originally, and that, Britain basically opened their doors, and everybody in their jails is like, okay, we're going to send y'all to Georgia. And that's where y'all are going to set up. So Georgia was, founded by some of the most violent of people. And we wonder why we have now, some of the issues and the trickle down effects of, what that meant. So Georgia being a penal colony originally was something that blew my mind. Peonage blew my mind. Peonage is another form of slavery, essentially, where people would, if you violated the law, if you broke the law in any kind of way, you would be entered into indentured servitude or a workforce where there was no, of course, time stipulation on your sentence. You could basically be there forever working. And it was like the pre-Jim Crow, where if you were loitering, you could be, like arrested and sentenced to peonage. And it was how railroads were built. And it's how mines were, mined, and just understanding that Black labor built this country essentially through criminalizing, Black people. So that was peonage, and penal colonies were some of the things that kind of shocked and blew my mind. What about you guys?
I'm over here sifting through everything, trying to find one. Christopher, if you have something.
Ones that is just terminology that someone can go, like take and look and see something about it.
I think for me, what's sticking out is the concept of white flight. The fact that most people understand that, our country has a history of racism and all that, but you just don't know how insidious it truly is, and how these simple structures are embedded in literally everything. Every social movement, every I don't know, my brain's not working. It's real early, y'all. But just everything has something to do with racism. And the more that you learn, the more that you are able to connect it to things that we see now in structures and
it's so structural and
Mhm.
institutionalized to the point that it's normalized, that we don't even question it in certain ways.
I think a lot of the classes we learn, like, it uncovers the insidiousness of white supremacy. And I think I also didn't understand going into it how prevalent it was even in my life. And there's also just a lot of other things that I've learned. I had no idea about the Haitian Revolution, which is something major that I feel like I should have known. I had never heard of Audre Lorde before taking Dr. Thomas's class, and now I read her at least once a week. I don't know. There's so much stuff.
Everything is significant. It's really hard.
It's really hard to synthesize.
But yeah, it really is.
There's a question about questions for the panelists. As you're engulfed in AADS, do any of you plan on visiting the motherland, Great Africa, someday as part of your studies or adding to your knowledge of Africa, therefore understanding your heritage? I would love to. I think that one of the great parts of MAST program is that you have the opportunity to do a study abroad. I think you can either do a study abroad or a what's it called? A practicum. Yeah, you do study abroad or you do a practicum. It's either or, and both of those are immersive
experiences.
Experiences. And I don't know if we have a study abroad offered to Africa, but if they did, like I would. Oh, for real?
I think there was Ghana. They did the year of Ghana. This year is Ecuador. They're consistently doing the programs.
I would love to. I haven't thought about it and in like a personal sense and like just me doing it for myself, but like for my studies, definitely.
I want to 100%.
Wow.
For my studies and research, but also just, personally as a trip to understand more about the continent. I'm not even sure exactly where I want to go yet. I haven't done research specifically, but I do know that it's on my list regardless.
Yeah.
But in general, there are a lot of study abroad opportunities, in the AADS department. Like we were saying, Ecuador is one that they're doing this year. It's been moved to a virtual program over the summer, but Ecuador is a trip that they continually take. There's Ghana as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to study abroad in the program.
There's this question about considering attending an HBCU. And where do you guys stand on that?
Understand being in this program and being in Black Studies, it made me feel like I really missed out on opportunities to experience an HBCU. Like going through the Black Studies program makes me wish that I had gone to an HBCU and gotten that experience in some type of way. I would definitely do it. If I could do it over again, I would probably do it. As much as I love my experience here at this program, I feel like that's something that, that's something that you can't really get back. And, there's also, that doesn't say there's not the opportunity to do it, because say that you pursue your master's degree, your PhD, whatever else, you can choose these schools for some of those programs. But I would recommend an HBCU for sure.
Did you guys go to like your K through 12 schooling? What was that demographic like for you guys?
So I started off in Pennsylvania, and I was the only Black person. Well, there were 5 of us in the school.
Wow, in the school.
Yes. So that was, and then we moved to Georgia when I was in middle school, and I saw all these Black people, and it was like a culture shock. So that was and I only had one Black teacher until I got to KSU and switched to AADS.
Wow. What about you, Daisha?
My family background is military, so we moved a lot in the Southeast region before I turned like 10 or 12, but it predominantly white experiences, being the token Black family in a white community. I think that also is especially because of my family demographic wise. My dad made decent money, middle class upbringing, which meant that we were, around a lot more white people. And I think that kind of informs my perspective when it comes to my interest in, like Black respectability politics and my, upbringing. I think that it's probably why I went to KSU as well, because that was a comfortable, mixed setting. But then I got to KSU and got into a very Black environment, and I didn't have a non-Black teacher at KSU until I entered the American Studies program. So in a way, I was kind of spoiled because I went straight from, being a transfer student. I was able to take all my AADS classes. So I had Dr. Thomas, I had Dr. Vaught, I had Dr. Orsha, I had, Dr. Williamson. I was spoiled. Whenever anything happened, I had this close community of teachers that I was able to, immediately relate to, who immediately understood my experiences and were very accommodating of the fact that, I'm a busy non-traditional student. I have a family. I have, a child and everything else. So.
Interesting, because my K through 12 background is I've always had Black teachers, always. And I grew up in Stone Mountain, Lithonia, DeKalb County. And that is just, I don't know, I think that informed a lot of my identity politics. And I had to unlearn a lot of stuff in order to, because I went to an all Black school, I was like, I want to go to a diverse school. I want to go to somewhere where I get to meet different types of people and different types of backgrounds. So I chose KSU most likely rooted in my own internalized anti-Blackness at the time. Like, this was years ago when I and we can talk about this if we want to. I think that my own anti-Blackness pushed me to go to a PWI, and then I've found comfort in my Blackness being around white people, because it made me have to be comfortable in who I am and like what I study and like where I come from. And for me, I think that was a very necessary experience, because my experiences before, it was like, I don't want to like talk about it in terms of like blaming the environment, but my old environment, because both my parents are educators. I come from a family of educators, and we can be a little bit pretentious when it comes to other, and I just always internalized these attitudes. And so me deciding to go to KSU was really just a reaction to having been ostracized by the community, which honestly was reinforced by my own attitudes. So there's a lot that goes into that. And so to answer the question about going to an HBCU, it never crossed my mind until maybe like the last year or so. And I think that taking these courses and deconstructing all these things that you internalize and build up over the years, like there's just so much that you don't know that you're buying into or feeding into unless you examine it and interrogate it. So I think that is taking AADS classes in the MAST program in general is a great way to decenter your own biases.
Right. I think that also I was very white socialized with growing up and everything because of my environment. So one thing that was interesting about, learning and understanding more about Black culture and Black history that was informing to, like my own Black identity, it made me in certain ways, it deconstructed my identity to understand why I, had certain behaviors or I reacted in certain ways. And so I think that with what I was learning, where before I would say that I was very white socialized, those things started to kind of slide off. And so, in certain environments where I would act in one specific way, after learning certain things and understanding and developing more of my own identity, it's just like, nah.
Yeah.
There's certain things before that I would accept or I would say were okay that I can directly now relate to something that's structural, that's something that's institutional, that's something that's specific. And I'm just like, not doing that, not today. And, I can give a speech on why.
Exactly.
So it's helped strengthen my confidence in, what I will choose to abide by and what I will choose to resist to in certain ways.
What were you going to say, Christopher?
Well, I started off college at Berry College, and there are no Black people at Berry. And
none.
KSU was like a breath of fresh air because it was more multicultural. There were more students, there were people. It wasn't just grass. It was just was very nice. I just wanted to add that.
Yes, Juan, I have always been told that I act white, talk white. You know, I prided myself for a long time, especially through my teenage years, about my adjacency to whiteness, especially in the face of being around all these Black people. And let's just say I've done a lot of growing and maturing and confrontation within myself. But I feel like a lot of my acting white presumptions is rooted in my educational background, and we can deconstruct that if we want to.
I've definitely dealt with that entirely. And the question is asking, like, have you ever been told that you act white? Or, absolutely act white, talk white. If you enunciate syllables, that somehow, lends to whiteness. But that's also, that deals more so with how Blackness is socialized and characterized. Like the use of Ebonics being seen as less than, when I learned in classes that Ebonics is African American vernacular. It's a culturally understood language, just like any other culturally understood language. So these, like, we've all been told things like that, or we've all heard things like that, and I'm able now to, like I say, contextualize and have an informed opinion on what that truly means and the layers of statements like that.
Yes. What about you, Christopher?
I also dealt with that my whole life because of the way I talk. And then, I don't know, I feel like I've always felt like it was rooted in anti-Blackness, and I always pushed back on it. But then, like, people would tell me I talk white, but then they'd make fun of my big lips. And I'm like, well, which is it?
It's an interesting aspect. White words coming out of a Black body.
Yeah.
When you say that, specifically mention your phenotype and everything else.
Yeah, I'm Black, and I don't know what else
and
to say.
And then also, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's all.
That makes me think about how Blackness is such a fluidly seen space, because, there's cultural currency connected to it. So if you don't act Black, or, at certain times, then are you Black enough? Are you being, like, identity comes in a certain type of way, and the monolith of Blackness that we're constantly trying to reject.
I struggle with that a lot.
Black.
I struggle with that a lot, because in high school, I was the person who listened to rock music, and I was the girl who brought my guitar to school and was like singing on the staircase and, singing Hannah Montana and Demi Lovato, and not like, I don't even know who the people were.
You're still the girl who skateboards around campus.
Show am. And Black is not a monolith. And when you understand that, like, there are Black kids that I have met now that are all of those things, and they're Black AF as well. And it's just like, you can be whatever you want to be without having to stick to whatever box society wants to put you in. And look, I've always been myself. I don't know.
And that also comes with, like, the academic environment, being in, having to be professional in settings. And what does professional really mean? Professional is a code for white in a lot of ways. So one thing that about the space with, the AADS program is that we get the space to, I won't say, be Black, but we get the space to define our Blackness and be flexible in our Blackness and what it means.
Yeah.
And AADS has also helped me to have the language to correct people, which I actually enjoy.
Yes.
We can read. We can read people.
And so eloquently. We're not skipping a beat.
Oh, and just to, quick plug right here while we're talking about anti-Blackness and, acting white, or this culture around, speech and Blackness, or what Blackness means. Brittany Cooper, her her book Eloquent Rage talks about how our rage as Black women, as Black feminists, it's a superpower. So she talks about her own personal experiences with defining her Blackness, and becoming a Black academic, and always being she was immersed in Black community, but also on an academic track of higher learning that, you know, in ways alienated her from her community. So she speaks to what that means with, and that's in layers of Black respectability politics as well. But she speaks to what that means. But I would definitely recommend reading that. Once again, Eloquent Rage by Brittany Cooper. I would recommend reading that book entirely.
Also, Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall. That is the book that I have been reading time and time again, along with Eloquent Rage, because they're both in conversation with one another. Because Mickey Kendall kind of comes from the other side of the tracks, where she's like, the full title of Hood Feminism is Hood Feminism: Notes from the Women a Movement for God, and or something like that. And no, yeah, it's just right. Like you by acknowledging the gaps in the trends and in the feminism and in the activism and all that stuff, like she really grabbed me by the neck and was like, I'm gonna force you to confront your own biases. I'm gonna force you to confront your own misnomers and the stuff that you have just consumed and haven't questioned. You about to question it today. And I love that about that book. I love that about that, because also Brittany Cooper does the same thing. But they do it for different reasons and in different ways, but the message is always the same. You can never just be comfortable accepting what people tell you.
Also, while we're talking about books, Uses of Anger by Audre Lorde and Sister Outsider kind of changed my life in the way that I can anger and the way that I can use it. So I would also all of Audre Lorde's work surrounding silence and the need to voice what you have to say has also been really important to me. So I would also recommend that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about AADS and the MAST program is that you will have the literature to back up your stuff.
I can send anybody a reference.
Literally.
Like, you know what, you need to go look at this, trust me.
Chapter 4, page 92.
I'll send you the link, it's fine.
Third paragraph.
Before we finish up, we had considered talking about finances with being able to afford the MAST program and resources that are available to be able to afford graduate studies or the MAST program. And so Kara and I are both assistants in the program, like faculty, where I am a graduate research assistant and you're a specific
teaching assistant.
Right. So these are positions that are able to be secured in the program. As a graduate research assistant, I work up under Dr. Orsha, and I participate in research that are involved in we're doing a specific project right now, but you participate in research that are in particular interest of the professor or what they're already doing, and they assign you certain projects. And not only does it help inform, your academic journey, it gives, it helps you with connections with the department and everything else. But as far as financial resources, when you're a GRA or a TA, you receive a tuition waiver. And so this is something that completely covers your tuition for the semester that you are assigned this position. And it's also something that gives you a stipend. And there are different tiers of levels of what stipend you'll get. So, depending on the amount of work that you do per week, it's going to correlate to what type of stipend that you receive. But there are ways to be able to afford the program, something that I wouldn't, and help alleviate the loan process as well, because there are student loans and things, but this is something that, is free money. And these are positions that are able to be secured. Did you want to talk about the, teaching assistant position or what you do?
Yeah. So when I got to be the teaching assistant, I had a class. So I'm the teaching assistant in the MAST program. So the Master of American Studies. I don't know if we've spelled it out this whole time.
MAST is the American Studies program. The acronym is MAST.
Yeah, the Masters of American Studies. I was a TA for Dr. Nirmal Trivedi in the Intro to American Studies, American Identities class. And for that, I was just kind of supplementing the classroom experience. I was giving like a weekend review for the classes. I was grading a couple of assignments here and there, but mostly I was a secondary agent for the students to contact, for them to talk to, for them to ask questions. And as far as the workload, it was it didn't feel like work because it was something that I was organically interested in. And also I want to be a professor. So I'm getting all the tools that I need secondhand. I mean, not secondhand, from like a first experience. And then I will be able to have my own classroom next semester, which is crazy because I'm in my first year, but second semester of the Masters of American Studies. And both semesters I've been in a classroom. So first semester I was in the American Identities class. The second semester now I'm in Gender and Women's Studies class in a class called Love and Sex. And next semester I'll be teaching Love and Sex by myself. And then the second semester I will also be teaching Love and Sex, maybe also Intro to African Diaspora Studies. But the TA is, I feel like the way that I explain it is that I'm being paid to go do what I love. And so if you can get in this, I think it's pretty competitive. However, I think that you do have to provide a couple essays. You have to have good recommendations. You have to have good recommendations, and also the GPA requirement. You know, it's a little bit stiff competition, but it's really worth the thing because I don't think you have anything to lose. You can only gain from it, and I've only gained since I've started this. Gain knowledge, gain correspondence, gain a lot of stuff that's going to help me with my future.
Deja, could you talk more about what a research assistant does?
Yeah, sure. So I am the research assistant to Dr. Orsha in the MAST program. And the focus of what we are researching, particularly right now, is Black mothers and their resistance and activism techniques in relation to police brutality and police killings of Black men and women. So the Black mothers of the movements that are, you know, currently happening. So we are doing research. We are contacting, you know, we're looking into contacting families. We are, you know, following news reports of what happens. Everything that is happening in real time as far as policy and legislation is also pertains to our research. So I do a lot of digging. I look through articles. You know, I create documents for her to go over and check the information of. I'm currently creating a Google map that, you know, has the pinpoints of all the locations of these things that have happened and the information that is contained in them. So, you know, I'm learning how to research effectively. And this is something that I'll be able, you know, that will inform my own research. There's possibilities when you're involved in research with these, with graduate research assistantships, there's also the possibility of of being included further into the research project. This could turn into, we don't know what it could turn into. These can turn into books, you know, like these can turn into things that I could be co-authored on. So there's so many opportunities for what this will mean for, you know, our resumes, for what it'll mean for our, you know, academic careers, for our professional careers. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's definitely worth trying to get into. And I think it's something that if you make it clear to, you know, your advisor, your coordinator, once you're in the program, like I keep saying, or we all keep saying, it's very supportive, very nurturing. If you make your, you know, intentions clear earlier and say that this is something that you want to pursue, they do their best to make sure that they can get you anything that you need in this program. So that's one thing that's really great. Starting to sound like a commercial, huh? But Christopher, you're still an undergrad and you're finishing up. Do you want to talk about, you know, your career aspirations, your plans? You know, I know that you're considering the MAST program, but you know, what sways you? What makes you lean toward it? What makes you think about other things as well?
Yes. So I'm getting ready for grad school. I'm applying to a couple of programs, and MAST is one of the ones I'm going to apply to. What draws me to the American Studies program is it kind of feels like it would be like a great kind of incubator for me to research and maybe narrow down my interests a little bit. So that's one thing that also it's an affordable option, as you guys have mentioned. And also it's close to home. So yeah, but basically I'm just looking at interdisciplinary options And honestly, before the pandemic, I don't know that I was thinking seriously about grad school. But now it's like, I really want to go. So yeah.
Yeah, we were going to take a moment to talk about how the pandemic has affected our studies and all that. Did you still want to?
Yeah, I think that we just have a few minutes before we're closing up, so we can talk about that. Did you want to start, Kara? Well, the pandemic started, I guess, like a year ago, right, this month and everything. And so we were in the middle of the semester. And this is actually where we were taking the Black woman class together, Kara.
Sure
and so
was.
the semester, it shut down and everything was moved to remote learning. And it's different for sure. You know, everything is on Zoom now. And when it comes to how it changed, or the hardest part about the change to me personally is that class conversations were so engaging and they were enjoyable. You know, like there were times where I come out of class feeling like I had just like, you know, had a mini therapy session, because you're able to release certain types of frustrations and it becomes a space, you know, inside of the academic space that is, you know, somewhere that you can vent, but also, you know, like learn and everything. So that was the thing that I noticed most as a change when it came to the program, that, you know, I missed this space that we were able to create as students with our instructors. And it's not as easy to really create these type of relationships over Zoom. It's a little more impersonal, of course, a little different.
Of course. I remember we've been in 3 classes or so, me and you, Daisha.
Definitely.
And eventually I was just like, you know what? I'm going to private message her and I'm going to ask for her number because I'm tired of this. I need to make a friend and I need to have connections. And that's the thing that you're kind of missing on online school. You don't get to make those organic friendships and just catch up with somebody after class and tell them to hold on and go get coffee or whatever. Like, you kind of just have to close the laptop and sit by yourself with all the conversations that you just had. And that's the thing that I have had a hard time adjusting to, not being able to make friends, because I'm very social, very also I'm kind of a class clown in like the best way possible. Like, I like to make my little comments and stuff, and it's just really humiliating to have to unmute yourself, say your stupid comment, and then go back on mute. It's 100%. Just not. Yeah.
And just quickly, me in the pandemic, I've kind of had the opposite experience. I've been more engaged than ever. I didn't talk in class that much. Wow. And I was like working a lot because I'm older, I'm 28. So like I have a lot of bills. And so I would like work till 2 in the morning, and then I have to get up to go to class at 10. And I've been lucky enough to be able to stay home and just like focus on work. And I've been more engaged than ever.
Great. Well, all right, you guys, I guess that's about it. If everyone could, there is a link to a feedback survey. If everyone viewing could take a minute to fill out that survey, we would really appreciate your feedback. Thanks again, Kara, Christopher. This has been a great conversation. And I hope that you guys are considering joining the AADS program and the major. I hope that we've convinced you, or at least given you something to think about, as well as the American Studies program.
Also, just to plug, we will also be here at 2 p.m. Yes. Is it 2 or is it 2:30?
It is 2 p.m.
2 p.m. talking about violence against women and the queer community in the age of the Black Lives Matter movement. Catch us at 2 p.m.
Yes.
For that.
And there'll be Beverly Guy-Sheftall on. She is an amazing professor, and she is the editor of Words of Fire. Brianna Simone Jones is going to be on. Kayla Story will be there. So we're going to have some really great people on later, and we hope you guys tune in.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Have a good day.
Bye.